What's up, everybody? It is Shaun here. We recorded the waiver wire episode Monday afternoon before the Browns and the Steelers game. Unfortunately, it looks like Nick Chubb is going to be out for the remainder of the season with a knee injury. That changes kind of fundamentally everything with the waiver wires this week. I would be ultra aggressive with Jerome Ford. There is a possibility that the Browns go out and sign a veteran running back, Leonard Fournette, Kareem Hunter out there. There's a strong possibility that they could trade for a veteran running back. I've seen people float Jonathan Taylor as an option, so that can't be discounted. But Jerome Ford looked fantastic this evening. He looked more than capable of taking over that backfield this year. They still have a fantastic offensive line, even with Jack Conklin injured. We're talking 50 to 60% of your fat budget on Jerome Ford. I would be ultra aggressive, probably more aggressive than I was with Puka. So I know that sounds crazy, but this guy looks like a top 12 play at running back. Really bummed to see Nick Chubb go out, one of our favorite players in the National Football League. But I would be ultra aggressive with Jerome Ford this week. Again, 50 to 60% of your fab. All right, let's drop into the episode. Week 3 waiver wires with fab bids. We are looking at guys with less than 35% ownership. I have 3 over 35% because they need to be mentioned. But before we jump into that, if you are watching this video right now, odds are you care a lot about fantasy football. If you care a lot about fantasy football, you should be subscribing to the Regression of the Mean YouTube channel. Go ahead, hit the subscribe button, click that like button, and turn on those notifications. We're coming to you 3 times a week to give you Sunday recaps, waiver wire analysis, and weekly matchup previews. Our Sunday recap is on the feed right now after done watching this video. If you haven't watched it, it's great. We send Dan Campbell to jail. We air out some of our bad takes, and we go through some of the best trends in fantasy football. So, Aidan, kicking things off here at running back. Who is your top running back option on the waiver wire?
I'll be honest, I don't love, once we get to wide receivers, there's actually some guys that I would be okay with being in my lineup. Running backs are just guys that I think need to be rostered. So these are more of stashes. This is a no-brainer to me, just given the injuries that kind of shook out last week, and that's Matt Breida.
Okay.
This is more so just Saquon is out for 3 weeks, and Matt Breida is likely going to get the first crack at the bulk of touches in that backfield. Currently only rostered on 3% of teams, was started by 1% of teams. This isn't a guy I'm spending much fab on. This is like sub 5%. If you're really desperate for a running back, I wouldn't be fired up about starting Matt Breida, but some people are in pitches already. So this is someone who I'm trying to pick up, especially if I'm a Saquon owner or just really in a tight jam. So we'll see how Matt Breida does, but absolutely worth getting off the waiver wire.
So I have Matt, and it's Breida. I don't want to be that guy, but he's Breida the Cheetah. He was a former 49er, so you had to learn how to say his name, right? Because you were saying it all the time. I can't believe he's still in the NFL. I feel like he's like a 10-year vet at this point. They have Eric Gray, who was, I think, a 5th-round rookie. We liked him coming out of Oklahoma, so he could be lurking to steal touches. I wouldn't blow too much fab on Matt Breida.
Definitely not.
He could get there with volume. It just kind of feels like Danny Dimes is just going to run a lot over the next 2 to 3 weeks. Week 3, they have San Francisco in San Francisco for their home opener on Thursday night. That seems like a rough matchup to be throwing Breida in. You've got Seattle in week 5. Seattle just gave up a decent amount of fantasy points to running backs. And then Miami. So, I mean, Seattle week 4 and then Miami week 5. If he's still starting against Miami, that's a pretty juicy matchup. They've been giving up a ton of rush yards so far over the first 2 weeks of the season. But I'd say if I were putting a place in a bid on a Breida, it's different. If you have Saquon, you might want to bump that bid up. But right now, I'm looking at 5 to 10% of the fab if I were betting on Breida. Yep. Would you say that's where you'd put him?
I would cap it at 5.
Okay.
I'm not spending much money here because, to your point, it's like Gray could be getting run too. This is more so just knee-jerk reaction. There's no telling if he's even going to get the bulk of carries this week. So I'm probably going 5%.
Yeah, I've got him 5 to 10%.
I wouldn't be
That's fair.
spending too much. Another guy that I have in the same exact range, same exact bid, who has less ownership, who is a handcuff running back to the starting running back, is Craig Reynolds. So he is the running back that had us so tilted that had us sending Dan Campbell to fantasy jail. When when David Montgomery left the Seattle game, Reynolds and Gibbs actually saw the same amount of touches, which is pretty insane to think. Reynolds has actually played in some NFL games, and he's been pretty decent when he's gotten a chance. Monty says he's week to week. Campbell says Monty's day to day. I envision that David Montgomery isn't playing this week.
No way.
No way. They're playing Atlanta and Green Bay. Atlanta's defense has looked pretty legit. I don't know though. They played Carolina and they played a Christian Watson-less and Aaron Jones-less Packers team. So I don't know how legit this offense is. I'd have to imagine that this is the Jahmyr Gibbs show, that they get him involved and this is kind of his breakout spot. But never say never. And Craig Reynolds needs to be on the radar. I would not spend too much fab on Craig Reynolds. I have him in that 5 to 10% range. I almost weirdly feel better about it than Breida in a way because I think he's going to get all the goal line touches, and this Lions staff seems really hell-bent on featuring another running back that isn't Gibbs. So as a Gibbs manager, I really hope Craig Reynolds is a non-factor, but as a realist here, giving advice to all of you, I'd probably go pick up Craig Reynolds. Don't spend too much. Don't get caught holding a huge Josh Kelly bag. I'd say 5 to 10% of your fab. What do you think?
Yeah, I would lean Craig as well. Like neither one of these guys by any means are like long-term like players on your roster or your lineup. So to your point, it's like definitely do not get carried away. Trying to strike gold in 1 week. Like these guys will not be relevant for very long.
I have him at 0% ownership in Sleeper. So that's how much availability Craig Reynolds has. It's almost assured that he is on the waiver wire.
Rightfully so. If you were owning Craig Reynolds, like I don't know what you were doing with Craig Reynolds on your bench. Like there was no world where he was getting touches unless something went down.
I've got one exciting one and then one just incredibly boring one. Should we do the exciting one?
Yeah, I like exciting first.
Okay, so he's owned in 26% of leagues. But Tyjae Spears, you should be picking up Tyjae Spears. He's available in 26% of leagues. His role right now, it's not going to be super fantasy friendly. He has a 35% snap share, 24% attempt share, 24% route participation, 8% target share. Very clearly getting mixed in as a rotation back, as the backup to Derrick Henry with some PPR upside. However, if anything were to happen to Derrick Henry, Tyjae Spears has league-winning upside, in my opinion. Like Mike Vrabel after the game just praised Tyjae Spears being able to get extra yards. When was the last time you heard Mike Vrabel praise a rookie? Like that's a really big deal to get that kind of recognition from such an incredible coach. I feel like when push comes to shove, this team already really trusts him. And, Derrick Henry's in his 8th season, coming off, he's 2 years removed from foot surgery. The guy's like an Iron Man in terms of how well he's played this far in his career, but like Tyjae is someone that is a complete handcuff. I don't think you'd be playing him at flex if Derrick Henry's out there, but I think he's worth, bidding around 10 to 20% of your fab, maybe 10 to 15% of your fab, just because the upside is so legit. I'm really not seeing such a huge difference between him and Jaylen Warren at this point. I'd go pick up Tyjae if you have an extra spot on your bench and you feel really good about your roster. He's like a kind of dart throw that I really think is worth taking right now on the waiver wire.
Yeah, his usage has been pretty surprising. It dropped a little bit from week 1 to week 2, but he's still seeing almost 40% of the snaps, which I didn't see. Like, I didn't see this coming whatsoever. Derrick Henry, to your point, has been such a durable, just like Iron Man type guy, just absolutely dominating that backfield throughout his career. So I think like you absolutely have to be paying attention to the snaps and actual valuable touches he's getting. They
already trust him. The coaching staff
I totally agree.
Trust him. That's all you need.
Did not see that coming.
That's all you need to know.
Did not see that.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty impressive. Any other running backs? I have one more.
Which one do I want to do? I'm only going to do one more. So this is one that. So this is a stash play. He actually plays tonight. So I think it's time you maybe put Kendre Miller on your bench. He is He's out tonight. I wasn't sure when I was actually writing this up. He got ruled out after, which I'm okay with. I think I'd prefer they get him back to full speed before getting him back there. I'd really love for him to get in there next week before Kamara returns, because they did spend a 3rd-round draft pick on him. This is someone who they're going to give looks at. Ideally, if you've got an extra bench spot or even just trying to, throw a dart, I'd say put Kendre Miller on your bench. They've got the Packers next week, which isn't the best matchup for him, but it's still someone who's worth taking a look at, just given his draft capital and kind of that offensive scheme. So Kendre Miller is someone who, again, like that's a 5% like max type guy for me. Like you're probably not going to be fighting your league mates for him in a lot of leagues. Like he's 25% rostered, so there's a slight chance that one of your league mates are sharp and they've been sitting on him for whatever reason. But there's a good chance you're not really competing with anyone for Kendre Miller. So it's worth throwing a couple bucks out there, even a $0 bid potentially, just to see if you can scoop him up.
That's a lot more fun. I think as a stash play, he's right there with Tyjae. We have no idea how this is going to break out once Kamara comes back, and we've only seen one game, and it was against the Titans front 7, which doesn't give up much. So we have no really idea how this backfield's going to shake out. My last one here is the ageless wonder, Latavius Murray.
That was my other one. I just didn't want to say his name.
2% of leagues. I'm talking 5% bid here, guys. Like, don't go crazy with this. But he plays 25% of the snaps, 17% of the attempt share, 20% route participation, 5% target share. So clear, like, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 on his own team. However, he seems like he's the clear goal line back over Damian Harris. It looks like Latavius has gotten the first crack at being the short yardage goal line back for this team. Sure. Ultra valuable. In week 2, he was expected to have 11 fantasy points, and he finished with 11 fantasy points. So that indicates that he was a pretty efficient guy. He's a decent handcuff with flex appeal and plus matchups. If anything were to happen to James Cook, I mean, you're probably starting Latavius Murray. Like, seriously.
For sure.
You're probably running him out.
Oh, in that offense? Yeah, without a doubt.
It's gross.
Even if you're in a pinch, and like, he's going to fall into the, like, he's going to do the Jamal Williams thing from last year where he probably falls into the end zone like once a week. And it's like, all right, there he goes again. Like, it's going to frustrate the hell out of you as a James Cook owner every week, but that's his role, and he's really good at it. So
he looks good. He straight up looks good. So, I mean,
he does look good.
What are you going to do here? The running back that I think is very obvious, he's only available in 55% of leagues. But if he's out there, this is a guy I'm comfortable spending 15 to 20% of my fab on. And if Jonathan Taylor does not play another snap for the Colts, I'm comfortable putting a 30% bid on Zack Moss. He was excellent in week 2. And if you follow us,
he won me a matchup, dude. He won me a matchup. He was awesome.
If you follow us on Twitter, I put this out there, and I didn't put it in our waiver wire episode. I completely forgot, but all the signs are pointing to elite usage for Deion Jackson, and all the signs were pointing to Deion Jackson being complete dust. And the thesis with Zack Moss was put just a slightly above average or average running back in that Colts offense. They're going to look really good because Deion Jackson is terrible. Moss was excellent in week 2. He had 7 missed tackles forced. He had 56 yards after contact. He had the 11th most expected fantasy points in week 2, 14.1, and he finished with 20. So we're seeing early signs of efficiency. We want to see that efficiency. He had 78% of the running back touches, 77% of route participation, a 12% target share. People, these numbers are elite. That is elite usage right there from Zack Moss. If we know that JT doesn't play another snap for the Colts this year,
wow,
we're throwing a lot on Zack Moss.
That's what I'm hoping for.
We're getting a little greedy with Zack Moss, in my opinion. He's going to be a weekly top 24 play with that kind of usage. So, again, if Zack Moss is available, that's the primary bid. Craig Reynolds, Matt Breida, Latavius Murray, Tyjae Spears, and Kendre Miller. It's kind of rough out there.
Those are sprinkles.
I'd say Breida is the guy probably out of that list if you're going to pick anyone up just off of volume if you need in a pinch. Transitioning over to wide receiver. Wide receiver is pretty... I've
got a couple I really like, actually, that like could be a flex like pinch here.
It's pretty enticing. So We'll get this out of the way. Very similar to how Zack Moss is rostered in 55% of sleeper leagues, and it would be a priority guy that you would spend, anywhere from 15 to 30% of fab on, based off of how you think Jonathan Taylor is going to come back for the Colts this year. I think Nico Collins, who's rostered in 55% of leagues, again, we're looking for 35% and lower. But Nico Collins, Nico season is here. Somehow this guy, I don't know how he's only rostered in 55% of leagues. He's the wide receiver 6 through 2 games in a very pass-happy Texans offense. I don't see that really changing. A lot of negative game script here for that offense, and I see Nico Collins, who's somebody we've been high on all offseason, continuing to look quite good in an expanded role. If he's there, 20 to 30% fab. He's legit, folks. I don't know what else to say. I'm preaching to the choir here. Go get Nico, right? That's
yeah. We've been kind of praising his name all summer. So like, it's pretty encouraging for him to be like exactly who we kind of hoped he was with better QB play in CJ Stroud. So now I love Nico Collins. He's not available in any of my leagues, which I own him, and I think 2, because Nico's awesome, dude.
You know who's available in 79% of leagues, who's rostered only in 21% of leagues? His teammate.
It's his counterpart.
It's his teammate.
Yep. That's one I got on the top of my list, actually.
So Tank Dell, I'd say 15 to 25% fab bid. I'd be decently aggressive. I temper expectations. It took a Noah Brown injury to get him on the field. However, in week 1, 48% of the snaps. Week 2, 79% of the snaps. 15% target percentage, 1.68 yards per route run, 10 targets, 7 receptions, 72 yards, and a touchdown. I think CJ Stroud, how many pass attempts did CJ Stroud have? Like 50? It was a very, very pass happy offense.
Got him
game.
At 47.
I think they're going to play in a lot more shootouts and pass happy games than people expect. And CJ Stroud looks legit, even with like 5 offensive linemen out. You got to think this offense might come on strong at the end of the year as they get healthier. Tank Dell is the exact type of guy you get aggressive on waivers. He is the clear number 2 in this offense, pass-happy offense. He looks great. We're always a little nervous about tiny guys, tiny wide receivers, but he looks the part as an NFL wide receiver. I'd be relatively aggressive. Not Puka aggressive here, but 10 targets in your second week in the NFL is legit.
Yeah, I'm like, some people would argue, like, what about Robert Woods? And like, I have no interest in Robert Woods. I want Tank Dell. We covered him a ton in our pre-draft coverage, and Tank Dell is super twitchy, much more explosive, and yeah, I think he's only going to see more and more work now that he's kind of burst onto the scene and proved himself.
Yeah, I'd get aggressive, 15 to 25%. I'd have a higher bid out on Nico as the year 2 player and as the X wide receiver. But Tank Dell is somebody that should be rostered, and he probably got dropped after week 1. I dropped him for Puka. No regrets here.
I dropped him as well,
him for Puka. No regrets here, but he is probably sitting there out on the waiver wire. Another guy that I have is another rookie. He's rostered in 19% of leagues, so available in 81% of sleeper leagues, is Jayden Reed. So Jayden Reed is the rookie wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers. His underlying statistics are fantastic in terms of efficiency, but it indicates that he's not a full-time player quite yet. 57% route participation, meaning that on 57% of Jordan Love's dropbacks, he was running a route. We'd ideally want to see a higher route participation for him to be truly elite week in and week out, but 23.5% target percentage, 2.66 yards per route run, so highly efficient player, getting targeted, but he's on the field. I mean, LaFleur's already scheming up touch passes that he's taken to the end zone. He looks every bit the part coming out of Michigan State. 2 TDs last week against Atlanta. My only caution with Jayden Reed and why I recommend around a 10 to 15% bid is Christian Watson's return is looming. And we have no idea what this offense is going to look like once Watson comes in. Is Watson just going to be a deep threat guy, or is he going to be like a mega target hog? I'm so excited to watch Watson now that we know that this offense at least is going to be competent. But with Jones coming back, Watson coming back, we just don't know. And he kind of seems like a part-time player as he is. So it's nice to see him in this role deliver. But I think it's going to be hard week in and week out to feed all these mouths, ironically. Like an offense that we were kind of skeptical about has a lot of talent. So I don't know. I wouldn't go too crazy with Reed. I don't think I'd be starting him. I'd be starting Tank Dell over Reed, but as a stash play in case injuries occur, sure. I think you got to get him on the roster. So I have him at 10 to 15% bid. What do you think about Reed?
Yeah, I thought it was encouraging too. The dude is super athletic. Like, we knew that his kind of like skill profile is much different than some of the other receivers in that room. So again, we'd love some higher route participation with him, but this feels like a guy that like they're going to scheme up these type of plays for him on a weekly basis, whether it be, quick hitting screens, end around, kind of some of the stuff that we saw last week. This feels like it's going to be a common trend, but to your point, Christian Watson is coming, and we don't know exactly what that's going to look like, especially Aaron Jones out too, probably out another week. I don't know. Like, this offense is definitely better than I think we had anticipated, and it could get even better, but we can't confirm that. So it's definitely something to proceed with caution on.
Don't blow it all, but I'm okay with you getting a little aggressive if you feel really good about this Packers offense. It's ironic to think there's too many mouths to feed at this point. It's like we still haven't even seen Luke Musgraves have a big game. We're still waiting for Watson to come back. So kind of a wait and see, but I would get him on my team. I've dropped him already. I probably have to go pick him up again in another league, but I get 10 to 15% of fab. Any guys before I think we're going to have the same one here.
Yep. Yeah. I had him last week. Josh Reynolds is still only rostered at 21%. It was kind of like, it was pretty like clear night and day after the first week. Like, this is going to be the number 2 wide receiver in that offense. And all he did was deliver again, catching 5 of his 6 targets for 66 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's got 3 less targets than ARSB.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Like, he's got 13 targets. Like, he's the clear number 2 piece in that offense. And I think we knew someone had to step up. I didn't think it was going to be Marvin Jones. Like, we kind of suspected it might have been Josh Reynolds, just given that there's not many other pieces that could have stepped up here. But Josh Reynolds, it should absolutely be someone on your roster and potentially in your lineups, like in a flex spot. Like, this offense is going to continue to score a ton of points. Next week, they're at home against Atlanta in a dome. Like, they're going to continue to air it out, and someone has to take the pressure off of ARSB, and he's pretty much proven he's more than capable of delivering wide receiver 2 numbers.
ARSB's a little banged up. Word around town is he's dealing with turf toe, so that's something to keep in mind. I think that Jahmyr Gibbs, as the season comes along, will be the clear number 2 as a pass catcher. I mean, Gibbs has like a 28% target share in week 2, so he had 9 targets as a running back. I think Reynolds needs to be rostered. He's not going to be the sexiest play, but
for sure,
3 less targets than ARSB, 12 points in week 1, 23 in week 2. He's not going to catch 2 touchdowns every week. I wouldn't throw a huge aggressive bid. I have him at a 5 to 15% range, so it's relatively wide. But it depends on your confidence in Jameson Williams returning. If we think Jameson Williams returns and is a thing, I don't think a super aggressive bid on Josh Reynolds is going to pay dividends for you. If we think Jameson Williams is a tire fire and it's not going to ever happen, I'd be pretty comfortable getting a little aggressive on Josh Reynolds because he looks really good. Like, he looks excellent. It's a great offense. He has rapport with Jared Goff previously. I definitely think he's worth bidding on, to be honest.
Yeah. In the order of the 3 guys we've talked about, I would probably go Reynolds, Dell, then Reed in terms of like my confidence as like long-term rosterable and potentially startable players.
I think I'd have Dell first, but I tend to get more aggressive with rookies. That's how I like to operate. Somebody too, he's rostered in 70% of sleeper leagues. If somebody dropped Kadarius Toney, I would go pick him up. I know Aidan was giving us a hard time by saying don't do that. That's bullshit. If Sky Moore got dropped, Sky Moore's available, is rostered in only 54% of leagues. Go pick up Sky Moore. These guys are going to be kind of a pain in the ass to start week in and week out, but over the course of the year, I feel semi-confident that one of these guys will emerge as a weekly flex like appeal or play. I really do. It may take 10 weeks. My money's on Toney, considering that they just are hell-bent on getting this guy the rock. I don't really get it, but actually I do. They're Toney bros. I'm a Toney bro. Come on. I'm what a Shaun. Don't talk yourself out of Toney. But I don't know. I probably you think Tony or Moore? Who are you picking?
I prefer Sky Moore.
Okay.
Tony's like
so volatile.
Yeah, like I think like Sky Moore is a much safer floor. Yeah, I don't know. Tony just is so frustrating. I could never find a roster spot for him. It's just not happening.
Moving on to quarterbacks here. Joe Burrow is out. Anthony Richardson's potentially out. I need a quarterback. I am going to be playing quarterback waivers here, which I don't love doing.
It's not great.
So I think one that's kind of obvious is Russell Wilson. He's only rostered in 47% of sleeper leagues, so it doesn't meet the 35% that Aidan and I typically are looking for like a deeper play. I wouldn't go crazy with Russ. I only have a 5 to 10% bid here on him. Has he played that well? No. He doesn't look amazing. Has he played that bad? No, I don't really think he's played that bad. Is Sean Payton a hell of a play caller? 100%. I really do. They're going to have their full complement of weapons almost. Dulcich is on IR. Rest easy, our Prince. That hamstring.
Sad, dude.
Second year in a row with an IR stint with the hamstring. Russ is currently QB5 on the season. He's got Sutton, Mims, and Judy. Little Jordan Humphrey, of course, and Brandon Johnson. Hand to God, I had no idea who that was when he caught the touchdown. I was like, who is Brandon Johnson?
I had no idea what I was looking at.
He's got back-to-back matchups against the Dolphins and the Bears. So pretty decent for points scored. My only fear is like if the Broncos go 0-3 and Russ isn't playing well, he might get benched. I know that sounds a little reactionary, but Peyton's kind of a hardo. I don't think he wants to go out sad this year. They paid Jared Stidham a decent, I think $10 million for 2 years. It's backup money, but also, hey, you might play money. So I don't really feel super excited about Russ, but again, he's QB5 on the year. So it could be a Carson Wentz situation where Wentz was like QB3 in the first 2 weeks of last year. It's probably more likely like that, but he's looked okay in a Sean Payton offense, and if you're in a pinch, I don't hate it this week. So he's rostered in 47% of leagues.
Yeah, this is something that we talked about all summer, and like he had to regress positively. Like what he showed last year was kind of nowhere near what was the norm for Russell Wilson, and we're kind of seeing that through 2 weeks already. So, no, I totally agree, especially with kind of some of those cushy matchups over the next 2 weeks.
Okay, so quarterbacks here, it's just not great.
Quarterback in general has been a bit bizarre. Just like a lot of the big dogs are really struggling out of the gate, and like that'll correct itself over time. It's just a matter of who's gonna kind of like remain in that top 10, top 12 range.
Okay, so I've got short-term rentals and then I've got long-term plays. I think a long-term play that's rostered in only 31% of sleeper leagues, somebody I'd put around 5 to 10% fab bid on, similar to Russ, it's Matthew Stafford. So is this the best Matthew Stafford's ever looked? Because the guy's been out of control good. I just watched him dice up the 49ers and almost throw a perfect game. It was pretty remarkable to watch him through the first like 3.5 quarters of that game. The wheels kind of fell off a little bit, so it was, it's tough when you have that kind of talent disparity. He's had back-to-back games over like 14 fantasy points. He's had a ton of attempts and only has one passing touchdown. I have to imagine that he's going to have some positive TD regression. Coming up, he's got games against the Bengals, the Colts, the Eagles, and the Cardinals. That's pretty damn good, honestly, for quarterbacks here. The Eagles have given up a ton of points. The Cardinals have given up a ton of points. Indy's gotten shredded. Cincinnati kind of on their heels. These are all 4 pretty decent matchups, and if Burrow misses multiple weeks, I think you got to feel pretty good about Matthew Stafford in your lineup. His O-line looks great. Kupp's coming back week 5. I think touchdown regression's coming his way. It's one of those guys you can kind of trust him. He's been there, done that. It's like a known name at least. What do you think for Stafford?
I think yesterday was like a pretty big confidence boost in like doing that against the Niners. I think like if he fell on his face, it was like, okay, that was just kind of like a week 1 thing, Matthew Stafford still, recovering from the shoulder issues. But yeah, man, he went 300 yards plus against a damn good defense, for like pretty highly regarded as like a top 5 team. The touchdowns will come. If he even had another touchdown or two throughout weeks 1 and 2, we're looking at 20 plus through, 2 weeks. So Matthew Stafford, yeah, he looks, I don't know, man, he looks reborn. He looks reborn, and Cooper Kupp is only going to help that kind of resurgence we're seeing with him.
He looks legit. My second long-term play at quarterback is none other than Sam Howell. Do you have Sam here? Okay, so I don't really have a diatribe here on Howell. He's been pretty erratic. His counting stats look awesome. So if you go look at his box score, he scores 15 points against Arizona week 1, 19 for 31, 202, 1 TD, 1 INT, had a fumble, rushing touchdown. It's kind of all over the place. Made some splash plays. Week 2 against Denver, 21 fantasy points, 27 for 39, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns. He hasn't really done anything yet as a rusher, which is what we thought he was going to do. He faces Buffalo week 3. That's not a great matchup. At least he gets him at home.
Not great.
However, after Buffalo, he's got Philadelphia, Chicago, Atlanta, New York, Philadelphia. Those are all, and again, I say Philadelphia, and everyone's like, oh no, Philadelphia. No, they've gotten shredded in back-to-back weeks, all right? Their secondary has already lost Devontae Maddox. That's a pretty solid 5 weeks you can get out of Sam Howell. And if he starts rushing more, we're looking at a guy you could probably play in most matchups. He's the QB 12 right now on the season. He's rostered in 22% of leagues on Sleeper. I'm comfortable with that 5 to 10% fab range that we just previously mentioned with Stafford and Wilson. I'd honestly rather have Howell over Wilson because I'm just worried Wilson's going to get benched. If I knew Wilson was going to play all 16, I'd probably just roll with Russ. That's Sam Howell's team right now. He's 2-0. They've had about as 100%. Cake of a start of a season as you can have, but he's shown competency. I know Howell was your guy going into the year. How do you feel about Howell right now?
Yep. The dude's only started 3 games in the NFL, and he's put up QB 11 and QB 14 this year. Like, I think we kind of forget, like, this is still, damn near a rookie quarterback playing, and he's putting up great numbers without kind of the rushing that we know is part of his game, and that was a part of his game at the college level. So, no, Sam Howell has impressed me. I own him on one team. Have not played him yet. But Sam Howell, I figure, is only going to get better as the year goes on. And that offense is really surprising us. Like, the running backs are good. Like, B-Rob is obviously completely outplaying Gibson. But those wide receivers are good, dude. Like, he's got a good team around him. The defense puts them in good spots. So Sam Howell's definitely a guy that should not be sitting around on the waiver wire, whether you're having to play him or he's your emergency plan. It's time to get Sam Howell off waivers.
Yeah. I wouldn't go crazy with any of these quarterbacks. The 5 to 10% range is where I'm at. I have to make a decision between Stafford and Howell with Joe Burrow out. If it's a 1-week injury for Burrow, I really don't know between Stafford and Howell. My mind tells me Stafford because we just know what Stafford is a proven commodity. Yeah. My heart tells me Howell because the rushing upside and the youth. I'm gonna be battling with that one, honestly. I really don't know what I'm gonna be doing there. And the last quarterback that I have here, he's only rostered in 19% of sleeper leagues. We're talking 1 to 3% fab budget because he's got New Orleans coming up in week 4, and then he's on a bye. So I really wouldn't probably play him against New Orleans. Maybe New Orleans doesn't look as good, but their defense looked legit in week 1. But I've got Baker Mayfield here. Currently QB 14. He went out and scored, I think, 16 fantasy points in week 1, 18 fantasy points in week 2. He faces off against a Philadelphia offense that gave up like 25 points to Mac Jones and 28 points to Kirk Cousins. He's got 2 excellent pass catchers. He's got a pretty damn good receiving running back. We like the play calling. We like the pace. We like the aggressiveness of Dave Canellis, their offensive coordinator, through 2 weeks. He might be the best play against Philadelphia between Stafford, Howell, and Baker, but he'd be a 1-week rental. In my opinion, I would only go 1 to 3% of fab right now on Baker. but he's going to be out there in a majority of your leagues, and he's kind of looking you right in the face, to be honest.
Yeah, he's just been super patient, super calculated this year. Like it's not the sexiest pickup by any means. He's even kind of running around a little bit, which is kind of like he kind of runs like slow motion, but he's giving you like a little boost on the ground. You probably get 10, 20 yards maybe on top of his passing upside. But yeah, Baker Mayfield looks very much in control of that offense. I think his line's doing a great job. Obviously, he's got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Rachaad White doing his thing. So it's it's one of those floor plays. Like I'm not expecting Baker Mayfield in my lab to give me like a 30 burger, but I feel pretty good if I had to start Baker in a pinch with what I've seen through 2 weeks that I'm probably getting 15 to 20 points, and that gets the job done. That's going to keep the lights on. It's it's what you need in that type of like streaming situation.
He's completed 71% of his attempts when pressured this season. In 2022, it was 45%. In 2021, it was 41%. 2020, 43. 2019, 45. 51 as a rookie. So I think regression might be coming. He's running a little hot here. I really do think his offensive coordinator is doing an excellent job, and he's passing the eye test. I'm torn on what to do here. It's gonna be tough to figure out how to replace Burrow. But again, 1 to 3% bid on Baker. I wouldn't be super aggressive considering he has New Orleans and then a bye. So that's it on quarterback. I have a couple on tight end, and I have one defensive streamer that I think that people should be picking up. You want to go through tight end real quick?
Yeah, let's do it. I think I've got two.
Yeah, I have two.
Yeah,
too.
I put down two. One's kind of a gag. One is legit. So I mentioned this one last week. Zach Ertz.
That's what I have too. I have Ertz.
The usage, like
is absurd.
The usage might be legit, dude. He's averaging 6 catches on 9 targets and about 40 yards through 2 games. I'll take that any day in my tight end slot, given the kind of dumpster fire that has been the position thus far this year. Like, I don't think anyone saw this coming. Like, it really felt like McBride was going to explode onto the scene, and that's just not the case. It's really not even close between the two of them, and he's still rostered in 17% of leagues on Sleeper. So it's like the guy is out there. If you need a stream, like the volume's clearly there. Josh Dobbs is looking his way early and often, so he's not the same Zach Ertz that we once knew and loved in Philadelphia, but his usage and target rate is it feels legit. It feels legit. It's not just one game fluke.
29.5% target percentage.
Ridiculous.
1.51 yards per route run. 0.35 targets per route run. Just absurd. 8.1 fantasy points in week 1, 11.6 in week 2. I really don't want him to be 10. A thing, but
he might be a thing.
He's a top 12
if he starts scoring touchdowns.
Top 12 play.
Yeah.
Who's your serious one? I bet you we have the same serious one.
No, that was my serious one.
I thought that was your goof.
No, I've got one goof.
Who's your goof?
My goof is Cade Otton. My goof is Cade Otton.
No, when Keegan's here. No, Keegan's not here. Not Keegan's Prince.
That was an impressive game for him. Caught all 6 of his targets, 40 yards, good for just over 10 points last week.
Take that.
That's encouraging. Yeah, you'll take that. He's, super young, very talented. So I'm probably not racing to pick up Cade Otton, but it's probably something I'm putting on like the watch list and seeing what happens. So, yeah, maybe really is the Cade Otton breakout here.
My serious one outside of Zach Ertz is Jake Ferguson. So
I thought about it.
And again, Cade Otton's a tight end for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Zach Ertz, tight end for the Cardinals. People probably know Zach Ertz is a Cardinal. But these are some unfamiliar names for the uninitiated, for the people that have really solid family relationships. Okay, so Jake Ferguson is the tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. He is 11th in target percentage. He's 3rd in targets per route run. He's 3rd in first read target percentage, and he's 2nd in end zone targets amongst all tight ends through 2 weeks. Dak loves his tight ends. He's currently tight end 16 with all those underlying metrics. A spike week is coming. He gets Arizona this week. I expect a lot of points scored for the Cowboys. Jake Ferguson's someone you got to go pick up. Really, I think he's going to have a big week.
Yeah, I was considering him as well. Like the yardage is
not much,
is quite low, but in terms of like you said, like the targets and his usage, that's super encouraging. And like I feel like the Cowboys are just like the kings of just like that, like play action, just like tight end dump pass on like within the 5-yard line. So Ferguson feels like a guy that could fall into a touchdown every other week. I like Ferguson. That offense in general looks really well oiled. They're going to score a ton of points, which means guys like him are going to get opportunities to score real fantasy points.
Yeah, that's it for tight ends. That's all I had.
That's all I got there. It's a dark place.
If Hunter Henry's still out there, go pick him up. He looks great.
I know.
I
even considered Gesicki.
Go pick him up.
They both look like they're going to be viable in that offense.
I mean, Hunter Henry, let's pull this up here because I didn't have it, but Hunter Henry is rostered in 48% of leagues, so he's creeping up, but 16 points in week 1, 17 points in week 2. Guy runs 50% of his routes from the slot. That's usage you need from the tight end, honestly. He looks like one of the only 2 guys in that offense that's worth getting the ball to, him and Ramondre. I have one defense. I suspect they're available in most leagues. I'm pulling it up here.
Yeah, I've got 2.
They are available in 79% of leagues, so they're rostered in 21% of sleeper leagues. I'm looking at the Kansas City Chiefs. So they had their next 4 weeks are against the Bears, the Jets, the Vikings, and the Broncos. They look pretty legit, dude. I don't know. They look like one of the more talented units in football right now. The Jets, I mean, come on. You should be starting anyone that's going up against Zach Wilson. I'm afraid of recommending them because I feel like when the Bears do decide to let Justin Fields run again, he's going to go ballistic. But he's a sack and turnover machine, so like probably just start defenses against the Bears too. The Vikings are going to score points, but Kirk Cousins takes sacks, does throw picks, and then the Broncos seem kind of like a mess. So I'm in on the Chiefs. I would go pick them up and start them for 2 to 3 weeks. Are you doing the same?
Funny enough is I'm actually picking the team they just played. I've got the Jaguars. That's another unit that I think has looked really strong through 2 weeks. They played the Colts and the Chiefs and given up just 16 points a game, along with racking up a handful of turnovers. They get CJ Stroud next week, who had an awesome week 2, but at the end of the day is still a rookie quarterback. They've got some decent matchups coming up too. Atlanta the following week. Buffalo is not ideal. They got the Colts, Saints, Steelers. So it's like it's not the most daunting schedule for them, and they've been pretty stingy through 2 games. Only rostered in 12% of leagues right now. I definitely like them against the Texans this upcoming week. CJ Stroud taking like 5 sacks a game. So just that alone, I'm pretty excited for. And rookie QBs are going to make mistakes. That offense, is not all that polished with the pieces in that room. So
they're down so many starting linemen. CJ Stroud's
I'm definitely
hung in there admirably. But yeah, Jacksonville's weird. Their offense doesn't. I don't know. Something's up with them. It's hard.
They just couldn't like punch it in yesterday. It was like it felt like they were going to tie the game any second now, and then like you'd look up and be like, "What happened here?" And then like they get back down there again. Just couldn't do it. Just couldn't figure it out.
Jacksonville's a great start for week 3. Afterwards, they have Atlanta, Buffalo, the Colts, New Orleans, and Pitt. So kind of a tough sledding right there. But they are a great stream for week 3. But that's it. That's all I have on the waivers. It's not sexy. It's not Puka Nacua or Kieran Williams or who else were the big names, dude? There were so many good names last week.
Yep. Yeah, I think the big thing at this point, waivers are pretty dry. It's really kind of just like monitoring who your league mates are dropping.
Yeah.
Because people are going to get impatient. People are going to get trigger happy. And a lot of times, like, you're going to fall into, a league winner. Like Justin Fields last year was getting dropped left and right. After the first couple of weeks, people that picked him up struck fantasy gold, and he finished as QB5. So I think over the next coming weeks, it's really important to just keep an eye on the transactions happening in your league because, you could get someone for damn near free that's going to end up in your lineup by the end of the year.
Yep. I think that's kind of the right approach. Sure, they're not sexy names, but these are the types of weeks where you can win your league on the wire if you're playing it smart, you're playing it cool, you're picking up a solid tight end, right? Like, you're going to have to play it week in and week out. There's going to be, again, I don't see a Puka Nacua coming through those doors, but Tank Dell may have a massive season. And if he's out there, get aggressive, go pick him up. He's probably the waiver wire target of the week. But before jumping, Aidan, we've gotten to look at a little more Luke Getsy film. What was up with that, dude? What was up with that?
He called the same play 3 plays in a row.
That's fireable. That's so.
And then Matt Eberflus defended it. I was like, it's a fucking clown show, dude. I'm becoming like numb to it. This like 2 games, and I can't believe where like I'm already at. Like panic meter, you know, like how am I feeling? Like it's full 10 out of 10 panic. There is, I can't say one piece of that football team where I'm like, well, this is going well. It's like they can't rush the passer. The Fields is holding the ball 6 seconds of drawback, and Luke Getsy's putting him in just a truly awful position. Like, can't get him outside of the pocket. Won't design runs for him. It's dark, man, and it's only going to get darker at Arrowhead Stadium this Sunday. So that should be really fun as they pan to Matt Nagy as Justin Field throws his probably second pick of the game.
I just can't believe we're back here. I thought we learned all the lessons about Fields, and we were going to compound on that and learn, but it's really disheartening.
We thought we did.
It's really disheartening.
We thought we did.
I don't get it. I really don't. Maybe there's a reasoning. Maybe they don't want to get him hurt. I don't get it, dude.
Well, they're coaching for their job. Like, Luke Getsy could be fired in the next
Fields?
coming.
I'd be running the Danny Jones offense from last year, where it was like, we're just gonna get this guy killed. We're just gonna run him 15 times a game, and
just run the offense they ran for the last 3 months out of the year. Like they made the adjustments and worked around his skill set, and now it's like circle into a square peg, man. It's like this just isn't working, fellas. So.
Alrighty. Well, we will be back Wednesday evening. Episode dropping on Thursday for a week 3 preview. Can't believe we're already there, but week 3 preview. The NFL content schedule doesn't stop for anybody. Aidan, thank you for jumping on anyways to talk waivers, and until next time.